Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Donna. Lovely to see you here again today. So it's a Sunday, which is a little bit of a different day for me to be posting a video. The reason I have posted today is because there is something that I am really interested in exploring and finding out a little bit more about. Now, I've got something in my hand. This is a little booklet that I made over the summer. This isn't what we're going to be making. However, it does kind of preface and lead us into what it is I want to talk about. So I'm just going to quickly show you just a flick through. So I just made it from coffee dyed paper. Put some tags and labels on. And I just put some various pretty bits and bobs in there. Made some pockets, some top pockets, and there's some side pockets as well. So I made this as a little booklet. And then the other day, I was watching, and I can't remember the channel, and I can't remember where it came up or how it came up or why it was on my feed. But there is something similar to this called a zine. Now, zines are not this, but when I was watching this video, I realised that I'd actually kind of made one without realising I'd made one. This isn't a zine because, for one, I've stuck 2 bits of paper together to double it up. For 2, I have stuck pages together so that they're not flipping open at the bottom. And for 3, I have pockets in it. So this isn't a zine, but it does lend itself to being made in that type of way. And it just made me have a think, really, about what zines are, what they're for, how they're made, and they're just something that really interests me. So I would quite like to start doing zines on Sundays. It won't be every Sunday, but it is something that I would like to make a little collection of and learn more about. You might want to learn a little bit more about them too, or you may already know quite a lot about them and you might be able to help me out a little bit. So that is why I've got this booklet in front of me now. However, it's not what we're going to be making for a zine because it technically isn't. I feel that zines can come across as quite complicated when in fact they are relatively straightforward. But I think a big part of making a zine is getting your head around the fold and then getting your head around the best way to go about collaging and actually making your finished product. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm not going to do any making of a zine. I just want this video to be a bit of a discussion about what zines are, how to make them, how to do the folds, and generally what my conclusions are in regards to zines, how I find best to work in regards to making a zine, and what makes sense to me. So that is what this video is going to be. Another reason I want to keep this video just to discussing those things is because it would be useful to have a video to always link. So if I do videos in the future making a zine, rather than going back through all the steps and the full process, I can just refer people to this video. So that was another reason as well. Now, as I said, I do feel that zines can come across as quite complicated. So I think it's going to be important for me to try really hard to explain things clearly and concisely with as little waffle as possible. So that's what I'm aiming for in this video. So I will apologise in advance if this video either comes across as a little bit boring. I can appreciate that these types of videos aren't for everyone. Some people just really like the chatty craft along videos, and that's fine. I completely understand, and if this isn't for you, I won't be offended at all if you don't want to watch it. However, I do feel that there is a time and a place to do a little bit more of a detailed video where we can just get back to basics and lay everything out and have a fresh starting point from which to work from. So fingers crossed, that is how this video is going to play out. And throughout the course of this video, I'm hoping that we can get to a place where we kind of all understand a little bit more about what a zine is and how to make one. So if you think that sounds like your cup of tea, glad to have you on board. Come and do some learning with me. We'll learn from each other and we'll learn together. And let's just get into having a bit of a chat about what makes a zine a zine. Okay, so I think the first thing to actually have a think about is, what is a zine? So from my understanding, a zine is a book, a small book, which tells a story or has a common theme running through it. That's the best way that I can think to explain it. So I have here a prototype. This is the first zine I've ever kind of consciously made, and it was just a practice, just to see what worked for me. And to make it simple, I just thought I would do quotes or sentiments. So front cover, I've got just to say there, I've collaged it really neutrally, and I've done some script stamping throughout. Opening it up, we've got a quote here, we've got a quote there, we've got a quote here, we've got one there, same here, and then I didn't put anything on the back for now. So this isn't a finished zine, it's just my prototype. It was the first, as I say, the first one I've made. But as you can see, there is a common theme throughout, which is quotes. And that is one thing which makes a zine. The other thing that makes a zine is the actual layout of your piece of paper. So I did zoom in, so I'm just checking that I can fit all this on the camera. So another thing that makes a zine is that typically they are worked on flat, then they are scanned, then they are refolded. So the finished product is typically the actual scanned collage masterboard type thing, not the thing that you work on, if that makes sense. So you would work like this and then put that onto your scanner, scan it, then do all your refolding and put it back together again. And that also makes your zine. So just to conclude, two main things that I have learnt about zines is, one, they tell a story and have a common theme throughout, and two, they are typically created flat, scanned, and then folded to create the final zine, the final product. Now I do have my observations, I do have my own conclusions, and I do have my own opinions about that, which I will go into a little bit later on in the video. But I just wanted to start us off by just having two main thoughts in mind, is that we are going to have a small booklet which tells a story, and that they are typically worked on flat and then scanned. So at this point in the video, I'd like to refer you to a video by Margarita Miller. She, as we all know, is a fantastic collage artist, and recently she has uploaded a video explaining all about zines. She shows you how to fold them, and she also shows her collage process. So I will link that video in the description below, and if you get a chance, I really would recommend popping over to have a look. It's a really good video. It's really worth your time just having a look about what Margarite does. Okay, so what do we need to make a zine, and how do we actually go about making the zine? All you need is a piece of copy paper. Depending on where you are from, it's going to be in A4 or the US letter size copy paper. And for the base, that essentially is it. Now let's have a look at the fold. So we've got our copy paper here. The first thing we need to do is fold our piece of paper in half. So we're going to fold it in half this way. Just going as close as you can to the edge. Open it up and then fold it in half the other way. So essentially just fold your piece of copy paper into quarters. So once you have your piece of paper, you've made your quarters, get it back so you've got it folded, so it's longer rather than wider. The next thing we're going to do is take this end and fold into the middle. And we're going to take this end and fold it into the middle. Now, just let me, to make it a little bit clearer, and also for my own sake too, there's my middle there, okay? So I fold it into the middle, get this one, and fold that into the middle. It's quite hard to see your line. So if you're struggling, just do a pencil line like that. Okay, so you've got both sides folded into the middle. And what we need to create is a concertina like that. So that essentially is the fold. So we'll do it again. So fold it in half, open it back up, fold it again, then fold each side into the middle, open it up and push that fold out, and it makes your concertina like that. And that's essentially going to be kind of the shape of your book. So once we've done that, there is a little bit of cutting to do. There are 3 ways that you can go about cutting, making your cut on your piece of paper, and we will have a look at each of those ways now. So I've just got my old board on here to protect my cutting board a little bit, and I have made 2 marks, 2 dots, one there and one there. Because what we need to do is cut along that centre line just between those 2 middle panels. One way you can do this is by folding in half, getting your scissors and literally taking a slither from the top and you don't need to take off very much at all, just take a slither. Literally that much I've taken off. And then you're left with your gap there. The second way that you can do your cut is by getting a ruler and a penknife and just cutting between this point and that point. And again, that will give you your cut there. And there is a third way of making this cut. It is the way that I did it on the little booklet that I showed you initially before I realised I'd kind of made a zine. And it's my preferred way because I feel like I'm a little bit more accurate with it. So we will have a look at that way next. I'm just going to get a piece of paper ready and I want to make a felt tip line so that it's nice and clear on camera what I'm doing. So I'll be back with you in a few seconds. So this piece of paper is all ready to go. You can see a big blue line here. The reason I have drawn this line is because I am going to rejig the fold momentarily to allow me to easily make a slit there. And this is how I do it. I put a thumb there on this fold, this centre fold, and another one there. Now, because we've folded, obviously we've got 8 parts now. We've got that fold here. Fold it over. Keep your eye on the blue line, fold it over. And you can see now that that blue line is on either side. And all you have to do then is snip from your fold to that last panel there. So I'll show you again. You're cutting between there and there. Instead of folding it like that and cutting with your scissors, which I find a little bit tricky, keep your eye on the blue line and fold it this way instead. And then all we do is cut from here right up. So you're just cutting through that one panel right up to that fold mark. And when you open it back up again, you're left with your fold. Okay, that's how I do it. I've always done that type of fold like that. I made a booklet for my sister for our 40th birthday, and I did it in exactly the same way as well, using scrapbook paper, and I made a little booklet for her with some old photographs. It's a method that I just find easier. It's a little bit difficult to get your head around to begin with, where to actually fold it, but really just remember that you've got this line here, this centre line. Just fold, make a snip up to your last joint, your last fold there, and you're done. So those are 3 different ways you can go about making this slit in your paper. The next step is to fold it into an actual booklet. So this looks harder than what it is. The paper will kind of naturally fold itself. So just get it at both ends and almost give it a pinch. And pinch that in. It makes like a little star. Push it together like that so it meets. And just fold it all in like that. Okay, and that makes your booklet. So we'll do it again. Where's the line? There it is. We have it like this. We've got our slits going here in between those centre panels. We give it a pinch. We create this star shape. We push it together. And we fold it in to create our booklet. Now at this point you may find that you need to rejig your folds a little bit. They may be a little bit off as we've manipulated the paper and cut our slits. You may find that your folds are just not meeting, so this is the time when we can just spend a bit of time manipulating your paper to make sure that they meet and join the way you want them to. You're going to be collaging over this, so it doesn't matter if you've already got crease marks or score marks. Just try and get it as even as you can. The more you do it, the easier you'll find it. Mine's not perfectly met, but I'm pretty happy with that. So we've got our booklet there. Now it's up to you from there whether you want your openings at the top or whether you want your openings at the bottom. I like them at the bottom, but that's entirely up to you. So now we have our booklet. This is where I would say things become quite subjective. There are things that are going to suit some people that aren't going to suit other people. There are some things that people will prefer over other things. So these are the things that we're going to have a little bit of a chat about next. The first thing you need to decide is if you're going to have your flaps at the top or the bottom, which we've just talked about. I've got mine at the bottom. Now, I know that some people just will not be happy, it just will not sit easy with them having their flaps left open like this. It doesn't bother me. Typically a zine is not stuck together because, like I was saying at the beginning, it's just, the zine is just a scanned piece of paper at the end of the day that we fold back up. We don't then stick the pieces of paper back together, we just literally fold it like a mini magazine. I know a lot of people will be uncomfortable with that. So that's the second thing that I feel is where people will have their own preferences and opinions on what they would like to do. I am going to leave mine. It doesn't bother me, and because I want to explore what a zine is, and because that doesn't particularly bother me, I'm going to leave it as it is, because there are other aspects that bother me more that I would like to adapt to suit myself. So I am not going to bother to stick those down. If it bothers you, that's where you might want to have your first think about whether you're going to stick your flaps down or not. The next thing that I feel may be different for other people is how to actually go about collaging your pages. It's a personal preference about how you want to do it. There are a couple of ways of approaching it, and we will have a look at those ways next. So the first thing we're going to do is put a number on each page. So that's our front page, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. So we should have 8 pages a front, a back, and 6 pages in the middle. When we open that up, let's have mine that way, you will see that this bottom row is in a different orientation to this top row. This bottom row faces that way. The top row is upside down and faces that way. Now, the reason that's important is because if you choose to collage your page, your zine flat, you will need to collage the correct way up. Otherwise, your pages will be upside down. So I find it really helpful, and this is another thing that Margarita Miller shows you on her video. I find it really helpful to put an arrow telling me my orientation, so I remember to twist my page. Now, I'm not sure if you are really zoomed in. I can't seem to zoom out anymore, so hopefully I've got all of this on screen. But this essentially is how it looks when you open it up. So we've got page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8. Now, as I say, this is only really makes a difference if you are going to collage like this. So the first thing we will look at is how to go about collaging when you've got your paper flat. So again, I'm going to do a little bit of marking up with a felt tip pen just to show you the different ways that you can go about your collage. If you have a look at mine here, you might be able to tell that I have collaged in groups. So those 2 pages, those 2 panels have been done together. These 2 panels have been done together. These 2 panels have been done together, and these 2 panels have been done together. That's one way in which you can create your collage. So if we were looking on here, we would have page 8, and page 1 collaged together. So that's your back cover, and that's your front cover. You would have, I'm going to do it in a different colour. You could do, this is what I did. I then did page 2 and page 3 together, as in the back, you know, like the actual background, paper, not the stickers. I'm just talking about your initial lay down of your collage papers. So I did 2 and 3 together. I did 4 and 5 together. And I did 6 and 7 together. Just on those initial collage pages, those background papers. Of course, you don't need to do that at all. The reason I like to do the front and back as a group is because I find it gives cohesiveness between the front cover and the back cover. But another option might be to do your front and your back cover together, so you work in a 2. But then you might choose to do page 2 on its own, page 3 on its own, page 4 on its own, and so on. So that's another way that you could go about it. You could do all of them on their own if you wanted to. So this is another way that you might differ in your approach to somebody else. And I think that's where as well, zines kind of, they get a little bit, like I was saying at the beginning, they become a little bit overwhelming because all of a sudden you seem to be faced with these choices to make, and you might not feel comfortable doing it in the same way as somebody else is doing it. You might not feel comfortable doing it in a way that somebody else on a video has done it. And I think it's human nature, if you're watching a tutorial, to want to do it in the way you're being shown. But we're all different. You know, we are all different. We all learn differently. We all approach tasks differently. So my best advice at this point would be just to do what works for you. So I've shown you a few different options there, and I showed you how I worked in my 4 sections of 2 on my zine here. After doing this, have come to my own conclusions about all of this, about collaging, about scanning, about collaging over panels. I have lots of different opinions, things that I liked, things that I was comfortable with, and things that after making my zine here, I've come to realise don't work very well for me. I've got some reservations about it. Perhaps things that have perhaps not worked out as well as I hoped they would work out. So we'll spend the last part of the video exploring some of my positive experiences and some of my negative experiences with making this zine. And then I will try and sum up at the end my conclusions and my kind of ultimate way for me of making a zine. So looking at my flattened out zine here, there are a number of things that don't really make sense to me in terms of this initial masterboard. The main one, to be honest, is the fact that a zine is scanned. Now, I understand that zines they're like a mini publication. For example, I was in Urban Outfitters the other day, and they were giving out free zines at the tills, and I brought a few home. So yeah, you know, in terms of an independent company, a big organisation, where all of the work, all of the articles or the illustrations within that zine are theirs, fair enough, it can be scanned, it can be copied, and it can be distributed. However, if I am a crafter and I am at home, the things I choose to put on my collage are scrapbooking paper, stickers, perhaps some die cuts, some quotes, washi tapes. And my issue is that all of those things hold copyright. Unless I manage to find a whole load of public domain things on the internet, print them out and then use them that way, you know, that's fine. But I would have to make sure that every single thing on my zine holds no copyright whatsoever. Otherwise, if I'm scanning those items, I'm in breach of copyright because they can't be scanned, and they definitely can't be scanned and then sold. I mean, they possibly, I don't know the rules, but Possibly there might be a loophole to scan and then give your scanned zine away as a gift, possibly. I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable with that, to be honest. If I had some Tim Holtz things on my collage here, there is no way that I'm going to feel comfortable scanning that collage, even if the finished scan is for my own personal use, because I've still scanned something that's in copyright. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that clearly or not, but that is one of my main concerns about a zine as a crafter, just as an independent crafter at home in a craft room, wanting to explore this particular type of paper craft. That is a big concern of mine. So going forward, when I make zines, the kind of traditional way of scanning, then refolding to produce the final product, I won't be doing, because I don't feel comfortable doing that. So that is one thing that doesn't work for me. I get it, I understand it, and I understand it as a publication tool, but it's not something that's going to work for me personally at home as a crafter. The next thing that I'm kind of struggling to understand is why we make the cut. Because even if you're going to scan it, you're not going to need that cut to do the folding until you've got the scan. You don't actually need the cut to do the collage. Does that make sense? Because it's just, you're working on a flat piece of paper, which you're then just going to put down on your scanner, get your prints, and then you can do your cut and fold it. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? I don't know. But to me, I can't see the point in doing that. It just makes no common sense to me. It makes no sense to me if I'm going to scan it, I should say, which I'm not. But if I was, it makes no sense to me. So I don't know. That's another kind of area where I feel, you know, if you're going to put it on a scanner to print, why cut it? You've got your 8 panels, so do we really need to do that? So that's another question that I've got as well about doing this process. Another thing that didn't work for me, now that I have my finished product, is collaging across the panels. The reason is because I'm not going to scan it, so I'm not going to have it all on a piece of copy paper which is nice and thin, which I can then easily refold. This is going to be my zine. So obviously when you collage, you're adding bulk. So when you come to fold it back, it makes the folds really bulky. And it also, where you've worked really hard to get a neat fold, because you've then added paper on, your folds are still out. You can see here where my folds just don't meet, whereas before I added the paper, before I did the collages, they did. And it's because I added paper on top, and it just manipulated the page in a different way again. So that is another thing that when I realised I wouldn't want to be doing any scanning, I then thought to myself, well, actually, I don't want to be putting extra bulk over these folds. So I would, in future, work panel by panel. Now, of course, you don't have to work flat at all. You can, if it suits you and if it's something that you feel more comfortable with, you can keep your book, your zine, as a zine and just work on it page by page. That will help you to know where you're putting your papers. So here, for example, you know, it takes away that option of collaging across both both panels. You've got no option, just, you know, just do your front. You then, if you wanted, could collage across both panels here, or you could take it as a page each. Same here, and same here. So you don't necessarily have to work on it flat. That's another choice. That's entirely up to you. You can just keep your booklet as a booklet and work through page by page. So what I thought might be beneficial at the end of the video is just for me to start with a clean slate and just make up the zine in the way that I feel most comfortable and in a way that makes sense to me. So this is how in the future, myself personally, I am going to go about making a zine, having watched tutorials, having done some research, having made a prototype and seen what works, what doesn't. This is how I am going to go about making one. I'm going to fold in half and do the folding as, you know, as suggested. So that's, yeah, I'm happy with. I'm going to fold into the centre. I'm going to fold into the centre. I'm going to pop this middle bit out to make an M. I am then going to, because I am not going to be working flat, because I'm not going to be doing any scanning, I am then going to make my slit so that I can fold this piece of paper back up into my zine. The way I'm going to do it is the way I showed you with the blue line, which is by having my line here, folding it this way, cutting here. So I'm going to make that slit. Then I'm going to pinch it and fold it to make my book. I'll just do it quickly for now. I won't bother with getting it all nice and straight. I'm going to work with my flaps at the bottom because that's just what I prefer. And I'm going to work on it as a booklet, page by page. Like that. I'm really hoping that I've been as clear and concise as possible. I was aiming for that. It is difficult because there are so many, it's such a subjective thing. There are so many variations. You know, some people don't want flaps, they want that stuck down. Some people want it open and they want to work flat. Some people want to collage across panels. Other people want to work on it as a booklet and work page by page. There is a lot of variations. I've tried to do this video in sections that make sense. I've had to do a lot of stopping and starting of the camera, so there'll probably will be quite a few edits in this video just to make sure I am making sense throughout, so that the video is at least making sense and is following some form of logical order. So that's what I was aiming for. So let me know if you've had any experiences of making a zine, what your preferences are, what you feel works, what you don't, and also if you've got any info, or you can shine any light on the whole copyright and scanning issues, then leave me a comment as well, because that is something that does concern me, and it would be something that I would be interested in looking at a little bit further. Obviously, we want to protect ourselves as crafters. We don't want to be scanning a Tim Holtz piece of, you know, whatever paper or die cut or something, and then be, you know, have a lawsuit to deal with. So anyway, yeah, that's my take on it. So to conclude, yes, we'll be doing the folding. Yes, we'll be doing the snipping because I'm not scanning and working flat. If I was scanning and working flat, I don't see the point in doing this, the snipping until I've got the final scanned version. And I will not be collaging flat, going over panels because it has bulk. I will be working in booklet form, page by page. So let me know. Let me know what you think. I'm hoping to get back actually making a zine in the next few weeks. And yeah, I hope this video has made some sense. As I say, I'm still learning. This is very new to me, and this video was just more of a case of just exploring what a zine is, how to fold it, but also the variations that you can do with it. And I think the overall thing to take away is that you work in a way that's best for you and in a way that suits you, and adapt it in a way that you're comfortable with. So I hope to see you next time on Zines on Sunday, and hopefully we can get some collaging done and actually make a zine and have a finished zine at the end of that next video. So until then, take care of yourselves, be safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.